Hello gang, DearBiker here with you, and this evening I've got an episode chock full of stories detailing encounters with unidentified cryptid creatures, strange beings, and yes, even Bigfoot. One witness included a haunting sketch of what he saw, and in two of the following reports, the witnesses actually included photos of the creatures that they took at the time of the encounter. So do me a favor, if you enjoy real cryptid encounter stories from real people, with no lazy text-to-speech narration or AI voices, then do me a favor and smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and then grab your boots because it's time to ride to Cryptid Country. All right, in this first email, a U.S. soldier was on guard duty one night in the Helmand province in Afghanistan. They encountered an unknown entity that was running along the wall enclosure. This is his story.
DearBiker, I was deployed in Helmand province, Afghanistan, from 2010 to 2011, and I had a lot of weird experiences. I've seen many unexplained lights in the sky, and that was wild, but I had one experience that absolutely terrified me. I was standing guard, post alone in the middle of the night. It must have been between 0200 and 0400. It was a quiet night and almost everything was silent, which is weird because there were always dogs barking and running around and goats randomly screaming. My post was isolated at the northeast corner of our fob, a good 100+ yards away from the next post. It was built on top of a mud wall that surrounded the compound and enclosed like a treehouse. We built a sturdy roof on it so guys could climb on top and get a good view of the area if we ever needed to. The post itself must have been 15 feet high in total. There was a mud hut where some Afghan security guards slept on one side, and the wall of the post was connected to it on the other. I was just standing there and contemplating my life choices when, all of a sudden, I heard something running along the wall behind me, just outside the post. The wall was only about a foot thick and would be impossible for a man to run on top of. It didn't sound like a dog because whenever its feet hit the top of the wall, it was making a clicking sound, like it had talons or something. There was a section of razor wire a few feet out from the post on top of the wall, and when it made it to that section, this thing just leapt on top of my post and stomped its feet right above my head, like it was intentionally messing with me. Whatever this thing was, it was big, like a full-grown man stomping his feet. Immediately after that, it sprinted full speed and leapt onto the roof of the mud hut that the Afghan security guards were sleeping in, and then into the darkness. It all happened so fast I never saw it, but I heard it and I felt its presence. I was obviously freaking out and frantically swinging around the 240B with the thermal sights, and I never saw it anywhere. There was no way it could have been human. It couldn't have been an animal because the way it moved was just, well, different. I don't know how to explain it. When it was on top of the post, it sounded like a large man stomping his feet, but the way it jumped off the top was so fast and fluid, and like it knew exactly where to go. I've never told this story to anyone, but it was probably the most scared I've ever been in my life. Signed, Neil.
Next up, a Pennsylvania man is out on his property at night using his new telescope when he started to hear what he thought was a child talking. And then later on, his daughter makes a disturbing discovery. He writes,
Dear Tattooed, this isn't my experience, but rather my cousin's. Now, he doesn't drink or do drugs, and until this experience, he wasn't interested in this Bigfoot stuff or even really believe it. It was the late winter of 2017, and he had received a telescope from relatives as a birthday gift. He lives by himself on a 1,200-acre farm in north-central Pennsylvania in North Cumberland County. There are 4 more people who live on the property, But the houses they're in are more than 100 yards away from his place. It gets very dark there at night, and the only lighting is from floodlights on the property when there's no moon. He was just waiting for a moonless night to use that telescope. So he sat up pretty late, all by himself in a folding camp chair with his telescope. After about an hour looking at the night sky, he thought he heard a small child talking. He became unnerved as it was coming from the direction of the nearby woods, and it was very dark, and he couldn't see anything. His only source of illumination there was his phone. This went on for a short time as he tried to make sense of it. His 2 daughters only visited on weekends, and there were no other kids on the farm that day. He started to get scared, so he packed up the telescope and headed towards his place at a brisk walk. He phoned me the very next day to tell me what had happened. I asked him what the voice was saying, and he said he didn't know, but he could hear it very clearly, and estimated it to only be 20 feet or so from him. He said that he couldn't understand what was being said. When I pressed him, he said something like, when somebody mocks a language that they can't speak. Within a year of this, his youngest daughter discovered several huge human-shaped footprints in the nearby woods as they were out on a hike. He now has a completely different perspective of all these phenomena. Signed, Nick.
Now, a witness describes his encounters with small, faceless humanoids at various locations. He also details a particularly creepy incident while at home, and he included a sketch he made of one of these beings.
Hey TB, one night when I was driving to my friend's home, we took a shortcut to his place, and we drove past a faceless kid who looked to be in his late teens or early 20s, according to what he was wearing. He was normal human sized. He had on a black hoodie and looked right at us as he walked under the streetlight as we drove by. He looked almost like G.I. Joe's Cobra Commander's face, but a darker gray. We were really spooked and talked about him the rest of the night in utter disbelief. That happened when I was in my early 30s. At my mom's house, since I could remember, when we had just moved in, sometime in the late 1980s. I didn't see them very often, but 3 mischievous gray-green beings that are smaller, about 3 feet high or so, and really skinny, so thin that you could see their spinal column, and a small, stubby-like tail. They too are faceless, and they love to play tricks on whoever might be in the house. When you leave something in one spot, and then the next minute it's gone? But then it miraculously reappears in that same spot where you'd left it. I'm pretty sure it's these guys who love to take and hide people's belongings. As a kid, they would snatch things from my hands and then run away so I would chase them. They never really meant me any harm, I thought. They just loved to mess with whatever they felt would be funny to them. One night, when I was around 35 or so, I'm 44 now, I was sitting in the living room watching TV, and to my left, someone sat down 3 feet away from me as I heard the leather and I saw an indentation. And then, over to my right, one of the dining room table chairs moved a good 6 inches, and I felt someone almost hovering over me, and then something touched my neck, so I knew it was them, just trying to prank me. So I thought I'd trick them this time. I got up and said out loud, "I need to go pee." And I headed towards the hallway, as the restroom is on the 2nd floor to the right. There's a dividing wall between the wall and the kitchen, and once I just stepped past the beginning of the wall, I quickly reversed back and swung over the kitchen side, and there it was. It was crouched over, waiting for me to pass. It heard me fake it out and looked right back at me, and it was surprised I saw it, and then it disappeared right away when it realized I had tricked it. I think they may be interdimensional beings that most likely aren't from here. Maybe a type of gray alien, but with a shield-like cover on its facial features. I ended up sketching it the way I saw it before it disappeared. I sent the sketch, and here's what I saw that I remember that night, just as detailed as I could get it. Thanks. Signed, Brett.
And now we have Terry, who states that his aunt was on the Navajo reservation near Ganado, Arizona, when she observed and photographed one of the creatures that the locals call the furry ones. This is the story, and the photo is included. Tell me what you think about this one.
Dear Biker, I'm writing this because my aunt took this picture about 2 years ago in a canyon between the communities of Cornfields and Greasewood, Arizona, on the Navajo Nation. She was out with her livestock south of our homestead and heard strange noises. She walked to the edge of this small canyon, and she saw this thing. When she did, it looked up at her. She's older, so her only thought was to get a quick picture and get out of the area. She chased a sheep back and didn't go back for a long time. But she did tell the family, and they were loading up with rifles, but we were told to leave it alone, as no one was sure what it really was. I heard that it was seen again a few days later, but I tell you, in this area of the res, weird things are seen and heard quite a bit. We've been told stories about Steamboat, Greasewood, and Navajo Station, but not to bother them. We try not to walk alone now, and we always try to carry protection if we do. Thanks. Signed, Terry.
And there it is. All the true cryptid encounter stories and reports that I have for you this evening. So, what did you think about these? As always, I'm anxious to read your thoughts and theories down in the comments below, but please, keep it respectful to the witnesses. And if you have an unexplained encounter or experience that you'd like to share, just send it to the email address in the description and, well, your story may just wind up in a future video. Anyways, thanks so much for riding with me tonight. I really appreciate you. And until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, stay safe, and I'll be seeing you on down the road a ways. Biker, out.